You've now found your way into my mind. This should be interesting. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Wanted to have a brief podcast today, something a little bit less intense than maybe in the last couple episodes. Primarily because, it's like a second date situation. I don't want to get into the crazy shit right now because it's gonna scare you guys away. And there's some truth in that. So let's talk about one of the topics that I've alluded to a couple times in podcasts and maybe in social media as a whole is the why. I just call it the why, but it's very self-explanatory, and I'll give it to you in 2 seconds. It's questioning and deciding why you do something, why you make specific choices, and why you make those choices. They're most commonly found in your choices of maybe careers or why you chose this over that, or why you chose to do this with your children versus that with your children, why you chose to make this decision over that decision, right? You could do this with anything, and this turns into very quickly some sort of quicksand of mental gymnastics. While I would urge you not to get there, especially if you're a person that has a type of brain that will get there, I will definitely ask you to ask yourself some questions, because I think there are things that are crucial to ask yourself. Career choices, maybe possible new positions, maybe asking yourself why you don't want this or that for your child, or why you do want this or that for your child, right? One of the things I was listening to the other day was listening to a pro athlete a fighter talking about how they're like, I wouldn't want my kid to do this. Oof. That's a hard one, right? Because a piece of me understands where that person's coming from. You wouldn't want a kid to go through the struggles and the difficulties and the pain and the ups and downs that a fighter likely will, because you're always going to be in the shadow of your parent. You're always going to be in a situation where you are cautious of their safety and afraid for them and cautious for them. And I understand you wouldn't want that for your kid. You always want better for your kids. And that's a discussion we'll touch upon in another podcast. But at the same time, one has to realize that, and I'm only speaking for males here because I don't have the perspective of females, but as a male, sometimes some males would prefer having a job or a career where they literally feel like they're more than anything molding it themselves out of a primordial situation than going through the rigmarole of a day-to-day office job. For some people, those day-to-day office jobs are death. And in some respects, you have to ask yourself, are you doing things because you're being slightly selfish of the decisions that you're trying to have your children make, right? If they're happy, which I think is most parents' goal, is to have children that are happy and healthy. If they're happy in that pathway and they are making a choice where they can provide and take care of themselves, is that a bad choice, right? Because for some people, that might be the best choice. And while I understand some kids might be doing it because they're trying to live up to parents' dreams or expectations, they're trying to prove something to the parents, if they're not doing it for bad reasoning, it's maybe a good career choice for them, right? But to get back on topic, I mean, that's my essential point of asking yourself why. Because sometimes those decisions, if we're taking the fighter's decision, or the fighter example, if we're taking that example, it's ultimately just him being probably afraid to have his kids go through what he's gone through and the difficult times. Because as a pro athlete, especially an athlete who is a fighter, you're dealing with a tremendous amount of difficulty, injuries, surgeries, ups and downs, making money, not making money, being broke, the party lifestyle, the stress and drama that comes with social media and a professional athlete. I mean, there's so many things that job entails, and I could understand that the parent not wanting that child to take a part of that. But if that's the right thing for that child, it's hard to say that, right? Because some people would prefer to be able to feel like they're taking complete ownership of their career. And in that type of job, that's completely possible. You are 100% in charge of your career, and how far you go depends on how good and how much work you put in and how you deal with everything as far as social media and the public and the way you sell fights and all that stuff. So in that example, which is the example that just came to mind as we were talking, that's a career where it feels like you are literally making your career depending on how badly you want it, right? And that transitions beautifully into my thought for this podcast. The why is a very, very important and critical thing for me, because in my lifetime, that has been extremely useful as far as why I've come to some of the decisions that I've come to. But more importantly, apart from decision making, maybe not more importantly, equally importantly, the why in my life has also given me tremendous motivation. And if we take this back to a more primal situation, if we're talking about the why as far as like working out, staying fit, right? This has been an endeavor that I've had in my lifetime for a long time. And I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, how long have I been working out, right? Like there's been varying levels of it, right? There's been varying levels of it. You know, you could say you've been working out since the first push-up you've done, but that doesn't count. I'm talking about like somewhat normal frequency of working out, and it's been a long time. That's a different discussion for a different day that we will get to, I think, at some point. But the why is important because I think if you can not just conceptualize your thoughts and reasonings as to why you're doing something, that sometimes can be then forged into motivation as a whole. And that then you can use to propel you to continue doing this motivating thing moving forward. And I think that's a super crucial little nugget to take with you. Because if you can conceptualize why you're doing something, then you're far more motivated to do something because now that's in the back of your head. You now know why you're doing it, and it should motivate you to continue to do it. Unless it's not on solid ground, right? If it's a shitty reasoning, then it's probably not going to be a great motivation. But if it is a truly great reasoning, right? If you're a person that's maybe out of shape or not in good shape or not healthy, or you have conditions in your health, and let's say you're like, I need to work out. I have kids I want to be with for 10 more, 20, 30, 40 more years, right? I want to be able to play with them. I want to be able to, roughhouse with them and not feel like I'm going to blow out a hip, right? If that's your motivation, once you've conceptualized that and you've realized what your why is, that's far more motivation. And that should be something that takes you to the gym. That should be something that you keep in the back of your back pocket, in the back of your mind. Any single time that you're like, I don't feel like going to the gym. I'm tired. I had a long day at work. Today was rough. Remember that. Remember your why. Remember why it is that you do what you do. And that sometimes, at least for me, it has been enough to get me off of that couch to go get a workout in. And you have to realize what your whys are. You have to make your decisions as what you do. I think for me, in my time, that has been critical. That has been incredibly important. And I think if you spend a little bit of time figuring that for yourself on the big decisions, maybe not on everything, right? Maybe not on like, should I paint my house white or brown, right? Probably not that important. Probably not worth spending the mental energy to figure that out. But if you want to make a real decision, maybe while we stay on the same topic about your health and your ability to be there for your children in the future, then maybe it's time you start making some time for some mental gymnastics, for some thought-provoking items as to why you do and what the benefits are of you doing that, and what are the negatives of you not, right? So that's kind of my tip for today and my thoughts of the day. I think this is something I could have alluded to a lot more, but I think ultimately I'm trying to keep it simple, and I think I've done so. If you're not motivated to ask yourself some deep questions, then maybe you have some soul searching to do as far as why you're not okay asking yourself some of these deep questions. Because some of these questions should be asked, especially about very important things in your life. And that's the first step to finding your why. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Today's going to be a quick one. I was going to tie something in to the end of this podcast, which maybe I'll just do a separate podcast episode about. But I felt like it was just appropriate to leave this here. And that's it. If you guys like this kind of stuff, like I said, just let me know. If you're looking for critique or you want to maybe do a little back and forth, I'd love that as well. Send me some info, DMs, comments, whatever, and we can have a little back and forth. That'd be fun to do a little back and forth podcast. But I will talk to you guys soon.